My dad's body's in there.
It's fine. No one in here at the moment. Hold on. The police. Got it.
Stay where you are.
Stay where you are.
Hey, show me
Stay where you
your
are. Show
hands.
your hands. Yeah.
Jenny.
Yep.
It was a quiet June morning in 2019, and the house on Pump Hill, Great Baddow, was eerily still. Upstairs, Virginia McCullough hesitated, gripping a hammer in one hand, a knife in the other. Her mother, Lois, lay in bed, oblivious, listening to the faint hum of the radio. Virginia stepped into the room, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. She had already poisoned her father the night before, his lifeless body now concealed downstairs in a makeshift tomb. But her mother wasn't dead yet. Virginia had to finish the job. Her hands trembled as she swung the hammer. Once, twice. The sound was brutal, chaotic, like someone badly playing the xylophone, she would later confess to police. Lois barely had time to react before Virginia plunged the knife into her chest, again and again, until there was nothing but silence. For 4 years, Virginia lived alongside the decomposing remains of her parents, meticulously covering up their murders with lies, deceit, and manipulation. How did she keep their deaths a secret? And what drove her to commit such unspeakable acts? This is the horrifying story of betrayal, greed, and a daughter's cold-blooded pursuit of self-preservation. John and Lois McCullough were pillars of quiet suburban life in Great Baddow, Essex. John, 70, was a retired business studies lecturer who had spent years shaping young minds at Anglia Ruskin University. He was a man of routine, a heavy drinker with a sharp intellect who carried the burden of his failing health, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, glaucoma, and high cholesterol. Lois, 71, was his devoted wife. A woman plagued by anxiety and agoraphobia, traits that kept her confined within the walls of their home. She was meticulous, almost obsessively so, about her surroundings, with a love for history and a passion for the royal family. Together, they had raised 5 daughters. Virginia McCullough, the youngest, was different, described by her siblings as socially awkward and a compulsive liar. Virginia never quite fit the mold. While her sisters left home to carve out their own lives, Virginia stayed behind, living rent-free in her parents' home. To the outside world, she claimed to be studying art, promising her parents a lucrative career that would one day support the family. But behind closed doors, Virginia was spiraling into a financial abyss of her own making. Virginia had become a master of deceit, weaving elaborate stories to mask her growing debts. By 2019, she had run up nearly £60,000 in credit card debt, much of it in her parents' names. To cover her tracks, she forged letters and concocted tales of scams, hacked accounts, and banking failures. She assured her parents that their money would be returned soon, all while gambling away their pensions and savings. Her web of lies was intricate, her manipulation relentless, and her desperation mounting. John and Lois relied heavily on Virginia, not just financially but also for their day-to-day care. Their trust in her was absolute, a trust that Virginia would betray in the most heinous way imaginable. By the spring of 2019, Virginia McCullough's life was a fragile house of cards, built on lies and spiraling debt. Her parents, John and Lois, were beginning to question their financial losses. Virginia knew it was only a matter of time before her deceit unraveled. She decided on a grim solution: murder. Her planning began in March 2019. Over the next few months, Virginia accumulated a stockpile of prescription drugs, bought a knife, and acquired tools to crush and separate medication. In May, she even began testing small doses of these drugs on her father, using him as an unwitting guinea pig. By June, Her desperation had reached a breaking point. On the evening of June 17, 2019, Virginia prepared a deadly cocktail of crushed prescription medication. She dissolved the mixture into her father's alcoholic drink. John, unaware of his daughter's intentions, drank it. The dosage was fatal. By morning, John McCullough was dead in his bed. Lois McCullough, however, was still alive. Virginia's attempt to poison her mother had failed. Lois hadn't consumed enough of the drugged drink. Panic set in. Virginia knew that if Lois discovered John's death, her lies and crimes would come crashing down. She turned to her backup plan. The next morning, as Lois lay in bed listening to the radio, Virginia entered the room with a hammer and a knife. She hesitated, leaving and re-entering the room multiple times, building the resolve to carry out the unthinkable. Then she struck. The hammer came down on her mother's head with brutal force. Lois, disoriented and terrified, asked, "What are you doing?" Virginia didn't answer. She grabbed the kitchen knife she had purchased specifically for this moment and stabbed her mother repeatedly, 8 times in total, with 7 blows to the chest. The attack was calculated, vicious, and unrelenting. With both parents dead, Virginia's focus shifted to concealing her crimes. She drove into Chelmsford later that day, using her father's credit card to purchase plastic gloves, sleeping bags, and other supplies. Back at the house, she began the grim task of hiding the bodies. John's body was placed in a makeshift mausoleum constructed from breeze blocks and sleeping bags in his downstairs study. The structure was covered with blankets, paintings, and other materials to obscure its purpose. Lois's body was wrapped in a sleeping bag and stuffed into a wardrobe upstairs. Virginia sealed the wardrobe with tape and partially obstructed it with more breeze blocks. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, Virginia McCullough began weaving an elaborate web of lies to explain her parents' sudden absence. The same day she killed them, she sent a text from her mother's phone to one of her sisters. "Your dad and I are at the seaside in Walton this week. Mom X." This marked the start of a 4-year charade. Virginia told relatives, neighbors, and medical professionals that her parents were on extended vacations, unwell, or had moved away. Using a multitude of SIM cards and pre-printed online birthday cards, she impersonated her parents, maintaining the illusion of their existence. Her careful manipulation, coupled with the isolation brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, allowed her deceit to persist far longer than anyone could have imagined. But the truth of what happened inside the McCullough home was far darker. Virginia continued to live in the house with her parents' decomposing bodies, John entombed in a breeze block mausoleum in his study, and Lois stuffed into a wardrobe upstairs. The smell of decay permeated the home, but Virginia lived undeterred, her focus solely on sustaining the illusion that all was well. Virginia exploited her parents' absence to claim nearly £150,000 in pensions, credit card charges, and other benefits. She used their accounts to open new credit lines, transferred their winter fuel payments to herself, and even posed as her father during phone calls with pension providers. Between 2019 and 2023, she spent over £21,000 on online gambling and frivolous purchases, frittering away the stolen money. The financial black hole that had initially driven her to murder only deepened. Virginia's deceit was bold, even brash. At one point, she canceled a television rental on her parents' behalf and insisted delivery staff leave the equipment at the door, preventing them from entering the house. To some, her behavior seemed eccentric, but harmless. To others, her inconsistencies began raising questions. Virginia's lies extended to neighbors and local shopkeepers, many of whom noticed her peculiar behavior. Debbie Pollard, a local florist, recalled how Virginia would visit her shop, bombarding her with gifts and food while behaving erratically. Paul Hastings, a greengrocer, remembered her casually mentioning that, "The police think I killed my mom and dad," a statement he dismissed as another quirk of her eccentric personality. Even Virginia's family members were fooled by her facade. She frequently canceled family arrangements and made excuses for her parents' absence. At times, she pretended to be her mother during phone calls, even mimicking Lois's voice. Her siblings, described as devastated and bereft, would later express their horror at having unknowingly played a part in maintaining her deception. The investigation into John and Lois McCullough's disappearance began on September 13, 2023, after their GP raised concerns about their welfare. John had failed to collect his regular prescription for months, and numerous medical appointments had been canceled by their daughter, Virginia McCullough. The Essex County Council's safeguarding team escalated the case to Essex Police, who promptly launched a missing persons investigation. When officers first contacted Virginia, she claimed her parents were traveling and would return in October. This story aligned with the pattern of excuses she had been giving for years. However, inconsistencies in her account and her evasive behavior raised red flags. Police noted that her demeanor was calm, almost unnervingly so, but unconvincing. Over the following days, officers attempted to verify Virginia's claims. They found no evidence that John or Lois had left their home in Great Baddow or traveled abroad. Banking records revealed no activity consistent with travel, but instead pointed to significant financial irregularities, continued pension withdrawals, credit card usage, and large online gambling transactions in Virginia's name. On September 15, 2023, investigators executed a search warrant at the McCullough family home. The scene that awaited them was chilling. The house was dark and cluttered, the curtains perpetually drawn, exuding an oppressive atmosphere. Officers were immediately struck by the strange arrangements within the home, including the breeze-block structures and the strong odor emanating from certain areas. Virginia met them at the door, and to their surprise confessed almost immediately.
The time is 12:12. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder against Jonathan McCullough and Lois McCullough.
Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
You don't say anything, but it may harm defence. You do
No,
not
I just
mention
take my coffee.
when questioned, so it's like you want anything to do with your business. Okay? Alright, your arrest is necessary
I'll
for a
cooperate.
prompt and effective.
Is there anything in the pot that we should know about?
Yes, there
Where?
is. Can I take you to it?
No, you can tell me.
Can we go in there for a second, just so I can tell you something about what's in there?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then,
You want to tell us
the only
something
reason I
about what's in
said I need to tell you something about what's upstairs on the top floor as well.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit more quieter. Is it here?
Yeah,
Yes, mind your feet. So obviously
yeah. Honestly, I'm not that phone.
No, it's fine.
I know, but obviously I've got to be careful.
My dad's body's in there.
Right, okay.
Yep, okay. Obviously I'll
What about
say,
your mum?
a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
That's why I said, can I go upstairs and show you?
Right, can you
If
explain
wanna
it to us,
bring
please? Because
officers,
we're trying to preserve this. It's now going to be seen, so we need to preserve this the best we can. So I don't want you to have you walking up there, all right? Because that's for your well-being as well as ours.
Oh, no, up.
Okay. So what?
Thank you.
Where
Can I grab
will
some
we find
hairbands
your mum?
as well, if possible?
Where will we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there are about 5 wardrobes.
Yep.
It's behind the bed at the back next to the sink. That's the second one. I've slipped 5 of those into his drink.
Her words were unsettlingly matter-of-fact. I did know that this day would come eventually. I deserve what's coming sentence-wise, because that's the right thing to do. As forensic teams began their search, they made 2 horrifying discoveries. In the downstairs study, officers found a makeshift mausoleum constructed from masonry blocks, sleeping bags, and household items. The rectangular structure was carefully concealed with layers of blankets, paintings, and filler material. Inside lay the decomposing remains of John McCullough. Upstairs, in a wardrobe partially blocked by breeze blocks, they found the remains of Lois McCullough. Her body was wrapped in a sleeping bag and sealed within the wardrobe using tape and other materials. Forensic teams meticulously documented the scene, collecting crucial evidence that would later support the charges against Virginia. The murder weapons, a hammer and a knife, were recovered, with the knife still bearing traces of blood. Prescription medications, matching the toxicology reports from John's autopsy, were also found in the house. These drugs had been crushed and mixed into drinks to poison both parents. Virginia provided detectives with a chillingly detailed account of the murders. She described testing the poison on her father before administering a fatal dose, then turning to her mother when the poison failed to work. She admitted to hesitating multiple times before striking Lois with a hammer and stabbing her with a knife, stating, "I knew I had to get it done and can't hesitate." Her admissions extended to how she had concealed the bodies and maintained the illusion of her parents' lives for 4 years. Virginia explained how she sent texts, made calls pretending to be her mother, and even used pre-printed birthday cards to fool her siblings and relatives. Investigators uncovered documents that painted a stark picture of Virginia's financial manipulation. Forged letters and fake correspondence revealed her attempts to convince her parents they had been victims of scams, all while siphoning money from their accounts. Bank records showed she had claimed £150,000 through pensions, credit cards, and benefits, much of which was spent on online gambling. Detective Superintendent Rob Kirby of Essex Police described the case as one of the most disturbing he had encountered. Virginia McCullough lied about almost every aspect of her life. She is an intelligent manipulator who chose to kill her parents callously and without thought for the suffering she caused. He added that the meticulous nature of her actions, both in carrying out the murders and concealing the evidence, demonstrated a shocking level of premeditation and deceit. The investigation drew widespread media attention, with neighbors and community members expressing disbelief. Local shopkeepers recalled Virginia's erratic behavior, describing her as odd but harmless. Many struggled to reconcile the quiet woman they knew with the cold-blooded killer described by police. The mountain of evidence gathered during the investigation, combined with Virginia's confessions, left no doubt about her culpability. On September 18, 2023, Virginia appeared at Chelmsford Magistrates Court, where she was formally charged with the murders of John and Lois McCullough. She was remanded into custody, and preparations for a complex trial began. Virginia McCullough's trial began with intense media scrutiny as the shocking details of her crimes captured the public's attention. The case moved through the initial phases, each step revealing more about the chilling premeditation and cold-blooded nature of her actions. On December 1, 2023, at Chelmsford Crown Court, Virginia declined to enter a plea, with her defense team requesting additional time to prepare reports from expert witnesses. The presiding judge, Christopher Morgan, set the next hearing for February 9, 2024, with a trial date tentatively scheduled for October 7, 2024. In the months leading up to the trial, Virginia's defense team focused on her mental health, arguing that her actions were influenced by undiagnosed personality disorders and autism spectrum condition. However, the prosecution, led by Lisa Wilding KC, emphasized the premeditated nature of the murders, presenting evidence of her extensive planning and financial motives. On July 4, 2024, during a pre-trial hearing, Virginia pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder. This admission eliminated the need for a prolonged trial, but did not diminish the gravity of the sentencing phase. The guilty plea was a turning point, sparing her family the anguish of reliving the horrors of the case during a full trial. The sentencing hearing began on October 11, 2024, presided over by Mr. Justice Johnson. The courtroom was packed, with family members, media representatives, and members of the public, eager to witness the conclusion of one of the most harrowing cases in recent memory. Prosecutor Lisa Wilding KC laid out the details of Virginia's crimes with methodical precision. She described how Virginia had meticulously planned the murders, purchasing a knife and tools months in advance and testing prescription drugs on her father. Wilding highlighted the financial motives behind the killings, revealing how Virginia had stolen over £150,000 from her parents' pensions, credit cards, and savings after their deaths. The prosecutor also detailed Virginia's attempts to cover up the murders. The court heard how she had sent text messages and birthday cards, impersonated her parents on phone calls, and fabricated stories about their whereabouts. Wilding called her actions calculated and heartless, emphasizing the impact of her lies on the family and community. Statements from Virginia's siblings, read in court, painted a heartbreaking picture of the devastation caused by her actions. "We have been left devastated and heartbroken at the deaths of our parents, who were taken from us so cruelly. As we try to move forward with our lives, we will remember the happy times we enjoyed with them. Our mom and dad are forever in our hearts, and are loved and missed beyond any measure." Virginia's siblings also spoke of their struggle to comprehend her actions. One sibling described her as a compulsive liar, while another expressed anger at being manipulated for years. "How dare Virginia rob us of that life? So many lies have been told to cover the horrific truth that she had murdered our loving mom and dad." Lois's brother, Richard Butcher, described Virginia as very dangerous and said the details of her crimes had undermined my faith in humanity. Virginia's defense team, led by Christine Agnew KC, argued that her mental health conditions, including autism spectrum disorder and a personality disorder, contributed to her actions. Agnew stated that Virginia was not using her diagnosis as an excuse, but suggested it provided some explanation for her behavior. The defense also pointed to her immediate confession upon the police's arrival as evidence of remorse. However, the prosecution countered that Virginia's remorse was overshadowed by her 4 years of deceit and manipulation, during which she continued to benefit from her parents' deaths. Justice Johnson delivered a scathing judgment, calling Virginia's actions a gross violation of trust. He emphasized the premeditated nature of the murders, stating, "These were considered acts of aggression following months of thought and planning. Your parents were entitled to feel safe in their own beds and their own home. Instead, you made a conscious and deliberate decision to murder each of them for your own gain." He dismissed the argument that her mental health conditions substantially reduced her culpability, citing her clear ability to plan and execute the murders for financial gain. The judge added, "You think more of money than you do of humanity." Virginia was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years. Justice Johnson explained that while the seriousness of her crimes warranted consideration of a whole life order, her guilty plea and cooperation with the police at the time of her arrest mitigated against it. Virginia remained emotionless throughout much of the hearing, staring at the floor as the judge delivered the sentence. It was only when recordings of her police interview were played, where she described the murder of her mother, that she began to cry. Detective Superintendent Rob Kirby of Essex Police did not mince words in his post-sentencing remarks. Virginia McCullough murdered her parents in cold blood. Her actions were considered meticulous and carried out in such a way as to conceal what she had done for as long as possible. Kirby described Virginia as an intelligent manipulator who chose to kill her parents callously, without a thought for them, or those who continue to suffer as a result of their loss. He added that the details of the case were so disturbing they shocked even seasoned investigators. The sentencing attracted widespread media coverage, with headlines across the nation describing the case as one of the most chilling examples of familial betrayal in modern history. Community members expressed their disbelief, struggling to reconcile the quiet, eccentric woman they knew with the cold-blooded killer described in court. Neighbors like Phil Sargent and Paul Hastings, who had interacted with Virginia over the years, recalled her odd behavior, but admitted they never suspected the horrors she concealed within her home. One florist, Debbie Pollard, said, "She's actually lived in that house all those years with her mom and dad's remains in there. That horrifies me. Horrifies me." The McCullough murders left a lasting impact on all who were connected to the case. Forensic teams and investigators described the scene as one of the most chilling in their careers. while legal experts debated the role of mental health diagnoses in mitigating culpability for such crimes. In the months following the sentencing, the case inspired documentaries and news specials, including Channel 5's Killed by Our Daughter, The McCullough Murders, which aired on November 12, 2024. The program delved into Virginia's motivations and the painstaking police work that uncovered the truth. Virginia McCullough's story is one that defies belief. A daughter who meticulously planned the murder of the very parents who had entrusted her with their care. For 4 years, she lived a life of lies, deception, and manipulation, using every tool at her disposal to conceal the truth. But, as in many cases of such unimaginable betrayal, the facade eventually crumbled, and justice was served. The McCullough case serves as a chilling reminder of the depths to which desperation and greed can drive a person. It's a story of heartbreak and loss, of trust shattered beyond repair. Yet it's also a testament to the resilience of those left behind, the siblings and extended family members who now carry the burden of remembering John and Lois, not for the way they died, but for the love and life they shared. To the officers, detectives, and forensic teams who pieced together the fragments of this horrifying puzzle, and to the McCullough family, who continue to heal from an unspeakable loss, your strength and perseverance have ensured that justice was not denied. As we close this chapter, we leave you with a question. How well do you truly know those closest to you? Let this story be a somber reflection on the human capacity for both trust and betrayal. If this story gripped you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime narratives. Your support helps us bring these stories to light and ensures the memories of the victims live on. And let us know in the comments, what aspect of this case shocked you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversation.